Cowabunga, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Technodrome Tales, your definitive 1987 TMNT rewatch podcast. I, of course, am one of your hosts, the real Brad Bell, and joining me today from the Buckeye State is the one, the only, Mr. Kendall Hallman. How are you doing today, Kendall?
I'm doing well. I just realized that I had the an effect going on my voice. Do I sound all right now?
Yeah, you sound crystal clear as Crane coming from the Android body.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think I had the voice of God button pushed. So
that's my favorite,
maybe it didn't come through. All right. Yeah, I'm doing good.
We're recording on a special day today. As you know, we have not done an episode in about 2 weeks or so, and that's due to scheduling conflicts. I do another podcast. Andrew Stokes and I have a podcast called the Confirmed Epic Podcast we've been doing for a couple of years. And that, like this podcast, is featured at thegww.com. That's the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network, featured there as well. Jerry's a part of that, been a part of that for years. He's been busy lately, though. He's got a daughter who's growing up right before our eyes. And Kendall does another podcast on the Audio Entropy Podcast Collective. You do the War and Beast pod. So
yes,
schedules are really conflicting. To get one podcast in a week when you're a married guy is doable. To get two in a week, let alone in the same day on Thursday when we usually record this podcast, not the most doable. So I just want to give a quick shout out before we get started to my buddy Ryan Snelling over at Sight and Sound podcast. I actually got his shirt in the mail for their podcast, Sight and Sound Pod, Music, Movies, Television. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out because I know they gave me one on their show. So Jerry could not join us this afternoon. We're actually recording on Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day. If you're listening to this in the future, I hope you had a blessed and happy Memorial Day 2017. Jerry Barbecue 17 Reed is on his way to WWE Monday Night Raw in Greenville, South Carolina. So that's why he couldn't be here. So he had a good reason, Kendall. But I definitely want to thank Kendall for joining me on this holiday today. Happy Memorial Day to you as well, Kendall.
Oh, thank you. Yep. I work today, but I get paid extra for holiday pay for Memorial Day, so that's good.
Yeah, woohoo. All right, so let's get started. We are reviewing season 1, episode 5, which is the season 1 finale, Shredder and Splintered. This originally aired on New Year's Day, 1988, so we've actually moved beyond 1987 now in our viewing of TMNT. So, Kendall, you just watched the episode. It's fresh in your mind. I watched this like a week ago when I thought we were going to record. So what were your kind of initial thoughts on this episode?
So I thought it ended the season very, very well. It seemed to tie up the loose ends and leave the door open for more. And also, but the biggest thing is, like, I know why Donatello is everybody's favorite Ninja Turtle from like our generation, the people that watched the show as their primary exposure to Ninja Turtles initially. Like, he is just the best character in the show.
He is, and he can be in 2 places at one time. Did you notice that little snafu in this episode?
I did not, no.
Okay, so there's a scene where the turtles are dangling from a rope on the Technodrome, and Donatello is supposed to be in Baxter Stockman's workshop, right? Working on the Turtle Blimp.
But is he in that scene?
He's in 2 places at one time. The turtles are communicating with him, and he's on the rope with them. So he is everybody's favorite turtle because apparently he has speed force powers like the Flash or Eobard Thawne because he can be in 2 places at one time.
So he's a time remnant?
He might be a time remnant, yeah. Which if you watch the Flash, those ultimately come back to bite you in the ass. So
yes,
speaking of that, I just watched the Flash season 3 finale on DVR before we started. Because I'm a teacher, I was blessed enough to have today off. Did you see that, Kendall?
I haven't seen the finale. I'm one episode from I have 1 episode left.
People's crapped on this show all season, for this being a weaker season, the Flash season 3, that is. And I've kind of disagreed. I've enjoyed some of the Savitar stuff. That being said, I think that I can agree with them after I watch the finale. But I'll let you be your own judge of that. Definitely don't want to spoil the Flash for anyone. So, speaking of that, let's speed ahead in our episode. Donatello, man, it's not just because he has a stick. You're right. He is the most fleshed out character. We finished season 1, and I think we can both agree with that, right? That he's the most fleshed out character here.
Oh, definitely.
And it's just
far and above.
Yeah, and it's not just the tech stuff. I mean, he has some good action beats as well. As far as the writing, the dialogue, the voice acting, everything with the character is probably the most consistent. That doesn't mean it's, award-winning, Emmy-winning level writing by no means. But for a 1987 kids cartoon show, it's done well nonetheless, the writing for Donatello. So let's go through the episode a little bit here. I have a few points I definitely want to hit on. We got the turtle communicator here. So this tech's starting to show up fast. Did you remember the turtle communicator from your childhood at all?
I did not, although it does seem like all of these types of shows had to have some way of communicating. They have the little mirror things in Sailor Moon and the wristwatches in Power Rangers and everything. It's a very 90s kind of thing.
Yeah, remember VR Troopers? They had like the little, I don't know if they communicated through them, but I think it's how they turned into their superpowered self. They had like the little triangle necklace or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, now that you mention that, yeah.
Yeah, they actually sold that in a McDonald's toy.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah. I actually need to revisit VR Troopers because I always remember liking it, and I revisited it like when it first came out on Netflix probably 5 years ago, and thought it still held up pretty well. But now that I've been sort of a little bit more in the sort of Power Rangers fan community type people, it isn't very well regarded in that community. So I kind of wonder how it holds up now.
Yeah, you're a part of the Audio Entropy Podcast Collective, as we mentioned earlier, and they have the great Power Rangers rewatch podcast, Teenagers with Attitude. Are they not that big of fans of the VR Troopers over there?
They are very, very down on VR Troopers. It's like I think probably because it was as successful as it was. Like they bring it up a lot more often than like Beetleborgs or Masked Rider, but I think they're pretty down on those as well. I think they may have done a bonus episode where they reviewed a VR Troopers episode, but I know that every time it comes up, it's sort of like, they're sort of down on it. But I think there are a lot of people who remember that show really fondly. So I'd be kind of curious to revisit it just to see, basically to see who was right. And I know that I'm right, because I usually am. But
yeah, you're always right, of course. The thing from about VR Troopers, rather, is that the trio, 2 of them come from a different Japanese show than the other, or a different season. So,
really?
Yeah, the pink one and the black one. What was it? Jake, Ryan, and Caitlin? I think that was it. I know it's Ryan and Jake, so maybe I got that right. But Jake and Caitlin are from a different Japanese series, and Ryan, the main one, is from a completely different one as well. So they had to come up with plots that would split the 2 and 1 apart. And
sort of like,
go ahead.
Sort of like in the second season of Power Rangers, when they're the suits are from Zhu Ranger and the Zord is from Dai Ranger. So they could never have you could either have the Rangers and the monster in the same scene, or you could have the Zord and the monster in the same scene. You couldn't there wasn't any footage that had the monster fighting both.
Yeah, and that made for some bad Zord fights in that season too.
Yes.
And I remember them hitting on that in Teenagers with Attitude, because I listened to that podcast. So let's keep on going here. One thing I wanted to bring up: did you see the Turtle telephone booth now?
Yeah, I noticed that we haven't seen that before, right?
No, we saw it last episode, and y'all said I was crazy that y'all didn't see it nor recall anything like. Well, not you, but Jerry was saying he didn't recall anything like that being in Ninja Turtles, and it is blatantly clear as day.
Yeah.
You remember from this episode.
Yep. Yeah, it was definitely there.
Okay, that's just a pride thing. I shouldn't have brought that up, probably.
Because I was like, why? I didn't even remember you bringing that up. I guess that's the downside of us missing weeks, but like he went in the phone booth and went down the thing, and I was like, that's going to take him to Baxter Stockman. Baxter Stockman has a pretty elaborate setup throughout the city.
Well, he is a genius inventor, Kendall, from the 1980s, so it's believable. This is the culmination of everything we've been building toward, mainly a fight between the Turtles and Krang. Krang gets access to his android body here. What'd you think about that? Do you find this body at all intimidating? I think it's got a cool aesthetic. What about you?
I was actually disappointed by it. I mean, I guess this is a cartoon from 1988. So like, I know it's not going to be super cool, but it looked to me like kind of a bad He-Man action figure.
It's funny you say that. Cooler. Because, this action figure here, it's like a deluxe one. It was like a foot tall or whatever. Sold for like $20 back in the day. It was one of the few that I didn't have. And now even unboxed, it's worth about $50 to $60. And in the box, it's worth like $300. This is one of the most popular TMNT action figures from Playmates. But Rocksteady and Bebop, they have a good fight with the Turtles there at the beginning in the street. You see them Rocksteady gets knocked in the head with a traffic light, and how he has the spotlight traffic light eyes. As a kid, I always loved that scene. Something about that was visually appealing to me.
Yeah, the thing that I always remembered, Bebop would do the talking and Rocksteady would be silent. When in my memory of fights with them in there, and that seems to be just completely wrong. Like,
I think it's more the opposite. I think that Rocksteady talks a little bit more than Bebop, but yeah, they both talk.
Yeah, they definitely both talk, which I remembered. Yeah, I remembered one of them kind of being the silent, like a Penn and Teller kind of thing. Like one of them did all the talking, and the other one was pretty much silent. But that was just completely wrong. So.
Well, what did you think about the beginning of the episode? Shredder coming on broadcast TV or interrupting broadcast TV to talk directly to the Turtles.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. Doing a video. I feel like it's one of those sci-fi things that, like, doing a video phone kind of thing, like a Skype type thing, back in the 80s was such a sci-fi concept that you could do it however you wanted to, and you wouldn't question it.
Yeah, but it's a trope of that time period.
But yeah, it was. Now, were they talking back and forth in the scene, or was he just interrupting it and giving the message?
He was just interrupting. If they were talking back and forth, that would have really asked us to suspend some disbelief there. So we didn't get quite that far. Speaking of Shredder and the Turtles, I like how in the Technodrome, Shredder has a turtle alert set up. Specifically, not intruder alert, but turtle alert. So I don't know.
Right, because
go ahead, Kendall.
They're the only ones that would pose a threat. Anybody else the foot can handle.
Yeah, the foot bots that get decimated by Michelangelo's nunchucks with one foul strike.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
right,
I mean,
they're really good at fighting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
It's like Dragon Ball Z, like where when the Saiyans show up in Dragon Ball Z and they just like completely decimate the entire military without even thinking about it. And then, the 5 people show up that are the Z Warriors or whatever. They show up and they actually can put up a fight because in order for the concept of superheroes and stuff to work, you have to sort of assume that this threat is bigger than bigger than normal law enforcement could handle.
Yeah, and it definitely is. We're talking about a extra dimensional vehicle burrowing beneath ground. You have a giant android body going through the street. So
yep, the only thing that'll stop them is four mutated turtles and maybe some teenagers from Dimension X.
Speaking of teenagers from Dimension X, we see the neutrino car again, and it is confirmed that it runs on plutonium.
Yep. Now, in 1985, you may be able to find plutonium at every corner drugstore, but in 2015, it's a little hard to come by.
Absolutely, especially even in 1988. Great Back to the Future pull there. That was the first thing I thought about when they said the car ran on plutonium. I'm like, this thing's a damn DeLorean.
Yep.
I don't know if you know this, but Turtles, especially in the first 2 seasons, they rip some stuff off. For example, there's an episode in season 2 in which it is a blatant ripoff of Aliens. For whatever reason. I mean, they look just like the xenomorphs from Aliens, the beings that they have to fight. But we can talk about that when they get there. So we mentioned earlier Donatello had a lot to do. He's making the Turtle Blimp. And what do you think of the maid scene? Just sit that up and just give us your thoughts on that.
So he's in there working, and the maid shows up. Oh, Mr. Stockman, I'm just gonna clean up. It was a little goofy. She makes the point of like, oh, I'm not gonna get in your way, and then she like is 100% in the way. Like if she had just kind of left him alone, he would have been fine.
Yeah, all it was missing is her saying housekeeping.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
That scene was hilarious. This is what I like this episode. I mean, we'll get to a final rating at the end, but overall, I really thought this was a good culmination of season 1. There is some cool stuff as far as Shredder and Splinter. They actually trap, when I say they, I guess I mean Shredder and the Foot, but mainly Shredder. They trap Splinter in some type of, I guess it would be a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not beam, but some type of contraption device he's in. And basically, he's stuck there. Shredder confronts him, and then we see multiple Shredders, some being holographic, only one being the real Shredder. What'd you think about that scene?
Well, so it was an odd creative choice because you could clearly see which ones were the holograms and which one was the real Shredder, and I don't know if that was intentional. I mean, obviously, it was intentional that they made the hologram see-through, but I don't know if that was so that like the kids that were watching could maybe have a chance at figuring out what was going on, or whether it was just we should feel smarter than Splinter, like or like we're seeing it, but Splinter couldn't see it for whatever reason. It was an odd, because normally in cartoons and stuff like that, when they do that trope, then they're solid. There is absolutely no difference between the fake ones and the real ones.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting how you could see clearly which one was the real Shredder. And if he is a ninjutsu master, he should have a little bit better intuition than to have to sit there and guess. But my favorite is how he gets out of this trap, where he takes his fingernail and unscrews a screw, and like Hawkeye precision hits the off button for this contraption device.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame he didn't have those. He didn't have that Hawkeye precision a minute ago when there's, because like also, the other thing about it is not even just because you could literally see them with the holograms. If he's a ninja, he should be using his other senses. He's a rat. He should be using his sense of smell. He should be using his hearing. He probably has heightened hearing because he's a mutant. So, like, I don't know. Maybe becoming a rat made him not the best.
Remember earlier in the season, he was tracking down Shredder in the Technodrome.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess his sense of smell isn't as good as he was pretending. Maybe he was faking it. Maybe he was actually like looking. He was using his eyesight, but he was like pretending like he was sniffing.
Yeah,
it's kind of like my dog or my parents' dog. He always like acts like he's sniffing for stuff, but you can be eating like a super pungent food, and as long as he doesn't see you, he won't freak out. But if he sees you with it, then that's when he freaks out. So clearly he uses his eyesight, even though he pretends like he's using his sense of smell. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking is going on with Splinter.
Or we have 2 beagles, so they use their sense of smell all the time. Believe me, they smell it, they see it, they want it. That's the way it goes with beagles, and beagles will eat until they'll pop. So you have to be very careful with their food intake. But enough about one of the greatest dog breeds in the world. Let's talk about the Turtle Blimp. I love this vehicle. It is the first appearance of it in this episode. This is what Donatello was working on at Baxter Stockman's workshop, if you will. Also, this is one other TMNT toy that I didn't have as a kid. I think because my mom was afraid that I would pop it. And since so many kids did pop this as a kid, to find one that has not been damaged, the actual inflatable blimp, because it was like a pool float or something.
Right.
Is very rare, and they go for $200-$300 if you can find one. Yeah, so out of box, probably about 100. In box, 300. I saw one like rated a 9.5 sell for $500 one time. But I wish I would have had that toy and took care of it. But I would have popped mine. There's no doubt.
So I had it.
I'm so jealous.
I definitely popped it. I think I broke the wings off of it at some point. I mean, when I was playing with Ninja Turtles toys, I was 4 or 5 years old. Like I was basically done with Ninja Turtles by the time Power Rangers was a thing, which was like kindergarten,
93.
first grade. Yeah. So by the time I was an age where there was any chance that I would take care of my toys, I was way way too old. Yeah, that's what I recently like sort of went through my childhood toys and pulled out the couple of toys that I had, the Ninja Turtles ones that I had that were like not in terrible shape. And I literally, of the I probably had 50 different Ninja Turtles figures. Of the ones that, at least the ones that my parents hadn't given away or whatever, which wasn't very many, there were like 3 that had all their limbs, so.
Yeah,
but I
were in some rough shape in my household as well.
But the thing about the blimp, yeah, I mean, I popped or lost or broke or whatever the actual blimp itself pretty early on.
Do you remember how?
No, I don't. It was probably the first day I had it. Like this was like a toy that I played with a lot, but I never remember even having the blimp itself. Like I always had just the part with the wings and that was cool. And it looked aerodynamic enough that you could pretend like it was flying just on its own. But here's my complaint about it. In the episode, all 4 turtles are flying on the blimp. There was no way that you could put all 4 turtles on that toy.
I wonder if they did it in the TV commercial for the toy. I haven't seen it in a while, but that'd be interesting to go back and look.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember right, like there's a spot for 1 turtle, and then and yeah, there's like not really a seat next to him, because in the episode, Raphael and Michelangelo are like sort of sharing the center console there, and then the other 2 are sitting on the like the boosters, and I would try to set a figure on each of the boosters, and they just wouldn't fit on there right, and yeah, it was really frustrating because I guess that it must have been because of this episode. I was trying to emulate this episode, and it didn't work.
Well, it's funny you bring that up about Power Rangers and Turtles toys. Like my same thing. We're about the same age. My Turtles toys were like Ravage. My Power Rangers, I was a little older. Like I don't know if you can see on the shelf to my right. I have all my original Rangers over there and all the villains, and most of them have their guns. I mean, they're a little scratched up and some paint wear, but I mean, they have all their limbs and they're in good shape. I wish I would have kept my Turtles in better shape, but I was a little kid, 3, 4, 5, 6 when Turtles was at its height, right before Power Rangers swooped in and stole that hype.
See, I went through a phase. Another reason that very few of my toys from childhood have survived. I went through a phase when I was in about 3rd and 4th grade where I was Sid from Toy Story.
Oh God.
And I would disassemble all my toys. It worked really well with GI Joes because like all their parts are interchangeable. So and there's one screw that would unscrew the whole thing. So you could switch heads and switch arms and everything. But with the Power Rangers toys, I'm sure you remember it was probably like the second run of the Power Rangers toys that were like 5 or 6 inches and the heads flipped.
Yeah.
So they
flip
would
head. Yeah.
So if you unscrewed those and you pulled the arm off and you pulled the head off, the joint for where the arm connects to the body is similar for how the neck connects to the head. So I could connect the head directly to the arm, and that is the one piece of Power Rangers toy from my childhood that remains.
Oh, that's sad.
I have an arm that's connected directly to a head.
See, I never liked the flip heads. I like the triangle box figures, the bigger ones, because they matched up with the size of the monsters, the evil space aliens that sat on the box. But so we've talked a lot about Power Rangers toys here, and a lot about toys in general, considering that Jerry is the toy guy.
Yeah, well, it's
I mean, find his site at actionfigurebarbecue.com. There's a plug for you, Jerry. Let's see. Speaking of a plug, how about Donatello's stick in this episode? Is it not to the rescue again? Because correct me if I'm wrong, because you just watched it. It's been a while since I've watched it. But isn't it Donatello's stick that closes the portal that's about to bring a gazillion rock soldiers over from Dimension X?
See, I thought you were going to say, because Donatello's stick does destroy the crystal.
That's it.
That makes Krang grow.
Yeah, that is it.
He like reprograms. He like flips some computer chips around to do the to suck everybody back into Dimension X. That's an interesting bit when they're inside of Krang's mechanical body and Leonardo's just like hacking at the thing and Donatello's like, no, just hit it like this. And it's very, very telling of their characters. Because,
absolutely.
I guess although you would think that a sword would be more of a precise weapon than a staff. Like I guess a bow staff is maybe do like monks use bow staffs?
I don't know. Something? I'm sure they have in some action movie before, but if Tibetan monks use them in real life, I'm not familiar with it. But I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in like D&D, monks usually are unarmed.
Yeah.
In Walking Dead, Morgan uses whatever his.
Oh yeah, he's badass with that thing.
And he's sort of a little bit more of a. And I guess like wizards use it. Wizards have a staff, so that's like the. I'm trying to think of like the smart guy symbolism.
Well, don't say Gambit because he's not that smart, so we can't say that.
Yeah, but like I guess, and I mean, I guess even like Splinter uses it. It doubles as a walking stick. So maybe that's why Donatello has a staff. And then Michelangelo has nunchucks because he's kind of goofy, and that's kind of a goofy weapon. Or maybe nunchucks are goofy because of Michelangelo. I don't know. And then, I guess the leader has a sword. That is sort of a leader thing, and the Sai are the brute thing. Oh, anyway, I'm rambling now. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the scene inside of Krang's body. I love that scene too. I'm glad you brought that up. It was almost like psychedelic in there. It's like a strobe lights flashing. Like I'm at a rave or something. It felt like. So I like the whole set piece and the scenery with that. Yeah, and you were absolutely right, because it's been like 2 weeks or something, or a week since I watched this. It was the stick that knocked out the device in the android suit. So all that stuff where the android suit's attacking and the turtle blimp and, getting to that confrontation on the street, that is some really epic stuff from this first season. And I want to talk about that because this is where you have the encounter between Krang, Shredder, the 4 turtles, and Splinter, in which Shredder attempts to use the retro mutagen gun on them. And this is a powerful scene because we know with the turtles, it turns them back into baby turtles. But we know with with Splinter, it would turn him back into a man, which was kind of the goal here. And you have a confrontation in which Splinter basically sacrifices any chance he has of becoming a man by destroying the retro mutagen ray.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very noble, speaking of things that go with character, that definitely matches the nobility aspect of Splinter. And I love the line when Shredder's about to use the mutagen ray on the turtles, where it's like, "Tonight I dine on turtle soup." What a great line.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. I like that. And it's right after one of the turtles says, "Oh, it's back to the pet store for us." And he says, no, it's worse than that. That was a cool moment. Yeah, I think that the having the tension between the cure, curing Splinter versus turning the turtles into turtles is a very interesting dynamic, because there's definitely even the second Michael Bay movie has, it's the second Michael Bay movie, right? That they have there's a cure that would turn them into humans, right?
I tried to forget those immediately after I walked out of the theater. I'm not trying to rag on you, because I know you like those movies a little better than I do, but I honestly can't recall.
Yeah. It was one of those movies. They had a thing that was going to turn them into humans. And then also, anytime there's one of the most common X-Men stories is if there's a cure that suppresses your mutant powers, and the people who and the sort of the tension between people wanting that cure and people getting forced to have that cure and all that. But it's a weirder tension it's a more subtle tension with X-Men, because it's Storm has the ability to control the weather, and Rogue kills anyone she touches. It's
that's a big difference there.
Rogue maybe wants the cure, and Storm maybe doesn't need the cure.
Which X-Men is so much more nuanced than TMNT.
Right. But it works really well, because I like it. I generally like Ninja Turtles better when Splinter was a rat. But,
yeah, I do too, and that's what we get in the first movie.
But you couldn't have this story if Splinter was a rat. You couldn't have that moment. That's a really cool moment, and a really sort of, even though they don't do too much with it, there's not too much dark angst related to it. It is a little bit of extra depth in a show that otherwise has very little depth to it.
I agree, and it was much needed, especially at the end of the season. What did you think about when Krang comes in to save the day, and he's like, "Quick, Shredder, hop on my back," and he puts the wings out in the android suit?
that was super goofy. Yeah, the way that Krang and Shredder are portrayed especially in this episode, but even kind of a little bit prior, is it's almost like they're in like a bad gay relationship.
Yeah,
like,
it does kind of that way a
like,
little bit.
Like not, I mean, not even that they're in there, but it's like they're like a borderline abusive gay relationship. Like they show affection, they have a weird way of showing affection for each other.
I'm glad you brought that up too, and that is shown kind of at the end of the season. So they get sent back to Dimension X, in which Krang's happy to go because he's going to rule over his minions there, and Shredder just wants to go back to Earth, and he starts whining and crying, almost like a significant other in a way.
Yeah.
So that goes
like,
into what you're saying.
I wanted to rule the Earth in my dimension.
Or at least he appears as a child, at least.
Yeah. I got a Rita Repulsa vibe from him.
And he makes that turn at the end of this season. I mean, you can argue he's been somewhat campy already, but he really hams it up in later seasons. I would say he's 3/4 of the time he's completely camp. A quarter of the time he may show some realism. Or I think it was about half and half in season 1. And I think we got a big turn here.
Well, he was I think with most of the season, he'll do things that are goofy or a little bit like chew the scenery over the top, but he's always sort of portrayed as this threat until this is the last time that this is the first time that there was like a genuinely like comedic, like intentionally comedic moment with him.
Yeah, which is a foreshadow for what's to come. I enjoyed this episode. I don't really have that much more to say on it. Is there anything that I missed that you would like to cover, Kendall, before we give our rating on it?
Well, just sort of another example of the weirdness between Krang and Shredder. He seemed like kind of overly gentle when he was putting Krang into the body. It looked like kind of like he was tucking him into bed. Like,
he's all
I don't know,
gooey, and he wakes up and he's disoriented, and that's good stuff. When that whole Frankenstein, I'm glad you brought that scene up because we would have missed it if we would have went on my path. Just that whole Frankenstein, it's alive. He says
it's alive. Yeah.
Oh, that was a good scene. It was a really good scene.
Definitely. And the one other thing. So Dimension X. One thing that I remember as a kid, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it actually is like this. I remembered the sort of weirdness of Dimension X. Like they go in and there's like, it's not like it's got that weird red tint, and like people are like standing sideways. Like it's not like they're just on.
You know what it reminds
me of? Physics works differently.
Remember the old 3D glasses where they're like red and blue? It's like you're just looking out the red side of the glasses.
Yeah, definitely. But also it's like gravity works different. Physics, you get the sense that like physics work different. Like it's really like it's not just like a parallel universe or where the turtles are the bad guys or something like that. It kind of reminds me of there's a plane in Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's called the Elemental Plane of Chaos, or maybe I'm making that up. I don't know, but like the point of that is like you could be walking and something that looks like it's far away. You take like one step and then you're there because your perception of distance is all off, and because it's another plane of existence. So the sense that Dimension X is more than just another planet. It's a whole other something.
Yeah, it's not like Flash or something, or DC rather, where it's like Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, and there's just slight differences. It is completely different as far as the laws of physics there. So, what would you rate this episode here between a 1 and a 5?
I would say it's a pretty solid 4. It definitely wraps up the season really well. Like I think if somebody wanted to just watch like some Ninja Turtles, like watching these 5 episodes, I think would really work. I don't know how it compares to the rest of the series, but these 5 episodes do work really well as just like sort of like one unit, like a movie in and of itself. And this, it definitely ends really strong.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.5, a great and a half on the confirmed epic rating scale that we use on my other podcast. I would give it a great and a half. Not quite epic. I don't know if you could classify any of these as epic, but it is about as good as this show gets, I think. And hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we'll revisit other stuff down the line. But I'd give it a 4.5, great and a half. So let's talk about the season as a whole. What was your favorite episode of season 1? And kind of how would you sum up season 1, your thoughts on it overall?
Oh, man. I mean, maybe it's just because, I don't know. Okay, so let's see. So the first episode was like the origin story episode. The second episode was Bebop and Rocksteady. What happened in the third episode?
The third one was the one where Michelangelo meets Krang and we meet Baxter Stockman.
Okay. So
and the fourth one's Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X.
I think probably my favorite episode is the Bebop and Rocksteady one, like that. I think, or maybe this. I mean, this one might be. I feel like it's been because we kind of spread the season out. I can't remember the. I can't remember the individual episodes as well. But yeah, I don't know. No, actually, I'm gonna say this was my favorite. I think this was probably my favorite episode.
This was my favorite as well. I agree with you. But what about the season as a whole? Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun with it?
Yeah. Sort of like I was saying. I think it holds together very well as a unit. It's I definitely had to maybe not adjust my expectation. Well, yeah, I had to adjust my expectations as I watched it, like to kind of figure out what this show is trying to do and what it is actually doing. And I think also the show was figuring that out as well. But kind of in spite of that, I mean, this isn't the 2007 movie. It's a very different take on the Ninja Turtles than that. But it's also definitely valid of its own, in its own way.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely stands up there in the pantheon of Turtles stuff, is the most recognizable. And a lot of the ideas that we have about this series come from these first 5 episodes. Mm-hmm. And I do think that they really are able to capture that whole Shredder once being human versus the Turtles once being just mere turtles and how that dynamic, I think that's what made this episode so great, is they brought that to the forefront and put a nice little bow on it. As far as pizza time, I don't think, was there any pizza here referenced? I didn't see any.
There was no pizza in this episode. This was a serious episode.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel that way, as more serious than the other 4 episodes, I would say, especially the closing. So speaking of closing, we're about going to wrap things up here on episode. This is actually episode number 6 of the 10. I'm trying to think because we did the 0 episode, so this is number 6, right?
So this would be okay. Well, if you would count from 0. If 0 counts as 0, then this would be 5.
Oh yeah, this is 5. I'm so sorry.
We've done 5 episodes of the show.
We reviewed 5 episodes, but there's been 6 episodes because the 0 episode.
Yes,
and it does. I do have to sit back and think, wait, we're on this episode, but why did I write? Oh yeah, we did the 0 episode, which was fun because we got our thoughts of the Turtles out there. As far as the show's doing well. I mean, it's in the top 5 of downloads on at least episode 4 was the review we did for Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X. It was in the top 4 or 5 of downloaded podcasts for the DGWW Radio Network. And we had some downloads on our own feed as well. We had a review on iTunes. So we appreciate everybody that's listening, everybody that's giving feedback. There is a desire on the internet for and I have not listened to any other TMNT rewatch podcast, so I'm in no way, shape, or form demean in any other podcast, because I know this is a labor of love and it takes a lot to do an episode as far as start to finish, producing it and whatnot. So, but apparently there is a desire for a TMNT rewatch podcast, which is something starting this season. I didn't know if there really would be, but there is, based on feedback and download numbers and whatnot. And I don't want the show to end. I'm busy because the other podcast, I already mentioned Kendall does another podcast. I run a website. Jerry runs a website. I participate in other websites. I'm married. I work. You get the picture. What I would like to do is maybe think about moving this podcast to Tuesday nights instead of Thursdays, because Thursdays when we tend to record the Confirmed Epic podcast. But that's something we can talk about off air as well and just work things out between you and Jerry and I. I mean, this is something I want to continue it for another season. Don't you, Kendall?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And of course, before we get to season 2, we're going to review a movie in between each season. At least that was the original plan. So next podcast, we're actually going to review the first film. So that should be a really fun podcast. I'm going to shoot to do that podcast on Tuesday, June 6th. So what would be, I can't believe that's going to be about a week from tomorrow. That's insane.
Yep.
May's coming to a close here. So Tuesday, June 6th. If not, look for it on Tuesday, June 13th. And we definitely want to make sure that myself, Jerry, and Kendall, that the trio from Technodrome Tales is on that, since this is a big movie review episode. And who knows, we may even bring in a special guest, since this is a movie episode. So that's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for that. Kendall, in the meantime, where can people find more of you on the internet?
Well, you can find everything that I do at kendallcast.ninja.
All right, that's easy. That's convenient. As for me, you can find me at theepicreview.com, thepicreview.com, thegww.com, Geeks Worldwide. Everything I do, I put out on Twitter at The Real Brad Bell, REEL Brad Bell. So look for me there. Right now on the Confirmed Epic podcast, we're doing the Icons of Cinema Summer Showdown series. We've had one bracket of voting in the 1960s. Mary Poppins won that. And now we have the second bracket for the 1960s. So go vote in that. It's The Man with No Name. It's Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's. And it's Sean Connery's Bond. So that's pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. Please go vote in that. And I think that's just going to about wrap it up for season 1 of the Technodrome Tales. Remember to stay tuned for our movie review episode coming within the next 2 weeks. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for clicking play. I think I speak for all of us when we say this has been a fun first season of podcasting, and we look to continue it many seasons forward. And Kendall, why don't you go ahead and give us Jerry's outline since he's not here? You think you can do it? It's a ninja vanish. You got it in you?
Yeah, I got it. Hold on.
All right, and here we go.
I always liked Kawabunga. Ninja vanish.